Ballyclare District Historical Memorial Association. In memory of Constable David Montgomery, our thoughts and prayers are with his brother Colin and the entire family circle. From your friends in Ballyclare. 2 RUC officers are ambushed and killed by the cowardly IRA. It was the end of January 1972, and it had been over 25 years since a police officer was killed in Londonderry, Northern Ireland, a country torn apart by terrorism. Constable David Montgomery was a 20-year-old, smart and friendly young Protestant man who was training for his sergeant exam. He had recently become engaged and was excited for the party that was being organised to celebrate the happy event. Sergeant Peter Gilgun, a 26-year-old Catholic man, was popular in his community and had recently become a father. Both men stood to protect the people from violence and terrorism in a country under constant threat from the IRA. On the 27th of January 1972, Constable Montgomery and Sergeant Gilgun had got into their vehicle with 3 other officers just outside the station in the Craigan area of Londonderry. They were only 100 yards from the station when a gunman stepped out of an alleyway and opened fire. The driver managed to drive through this gun attack, but only 50 yards ahead, another 2 IRA terrorists were waiting to ambush them, one armed with an old American-made Thompson submachine gun. These weapons were known to be unreliable, but tragically this time it was effective, and the car was hit 17 times. A Coldstream guardsman at the police station had managed to engage the attackers with 4 aimed rounds, but sadly David and Peter were dead and another officer was wounded. David Montgomery's brother Colin was only 11 years old when his brother was killed, and he recalled that day. I went to school in East Belfast. Every lunchtime I used to leave school and walk along the Beersbridge Road. We didn't live too far from it, it was just a 5-minute walk. I used to go to the bakery to get a sausage roll and then go home to eat it with a glass of milk before going back to school. That day I saw a bit of a crowd outside the house. There were a lot of cars. I was met by 2 police officers. They took me in and sat me down. I remember my father coming down the stairs. He was still covered with coal dust from work that morning. He had tears in his eyes, and he said, "These people want to talk to you." That was it. David was dead. It had a great impact. We were a very close family. Sergeant Peter Gilgun and Constable David Montgomery were the first of 20 RUC casualties that year. The guns were old World War II weapons used by the IRA before the more sophisticated weaponry support came via Libya and America. A leading IRA member testified that the brigade only possessed 2 Thompson guns, one of which was favoured by Martin McGuinness as his personal weapon. This attack happened only 3 days before Bloody Sunday. On that day there was an inquiry that condemned the paras, which no doubt brought some comfort to the families of those killed. There's been many millions of pounds spent remembering the loss of life on that day and in inquiries that are still being carried out. But by contrast, those killed by McGuinness and his men have received no such justice and no costly inquiries. We must ensure that Constable David Montgomery and Sergeant Peter Gilgun are never forgotten, nor the many others who lost their lives by the gun and bomb of the IRA. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families of these brave men. Constable David Montgomery, aged 20. Sergeant Peter Gilgun, aged 26. Lest we forget. If you're enjoying our channel, Please let us know by clicking on the like, share and subscribe icons below. And thank you for your continued support.